The stars looked different from this side of the galaxy. Jake Morrison stood at the window of the frontier, watching the alien sun grow larger as they approached. His reflection stared back at him, a tired man in a crisp uniform who had spent 3 months traveling to meet aliens for the first time. "Captain, we're receiving their docking instructions now," Sophie Grant said from behind him. She was his second in command, sharp and careful about everything. "They're sending them in perfect English." Jake turned away from the window. "That's unsettling. We only sent them our language files 6 months ago." "They're advanced, sir. Very advanced." That was Henry Cole, the science officer. He looked nervous, which made Jake nervous. Henry didn't scare easily. The Valorian Empire had appeared on Earth sensors 5 years ago. They had watched humanity for a while, then sent a message. It was simple and clear. "You are ready to meet the galaxy. We invite you to Valor Prime." Since then, Earth's governments had argued and planned and finally chosen Jake to lead this first meeting. He was military trained but had worked in diplomacy for 10 years. He could fight if needed, but he preferred to talk. The docking process was smooth. Too smooth. The Valorian station connected to the frontier like it had been built for human ships. Jake led his small team down the boarding ramp. Sophie and Henry followed close behind, along with 2 security officers named Carl Banks and Nina Price. The docking bay was beautiful. The walls seemed to glow with soft light, and the air smelled like flowers Jake had never encountered. Then he saw them. The Valorians. There were a dozen of them waiting. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin was pale, almost glowing like moonlight on water. Their eyes were silver, completely silver with no visible pupils. They wore flowing clothes that seemed to shift colors as they moved. They were all tall and graceful. One stepped forward. She was younger than the others, with long silver hair that floated slightly, as if underwater. Her smile was warm and welcoming. "Captain Morrison," she said. Her voice was musical. "I am Princess Kalara, daughter of Queen Thessara. I will be your guide during your stay. Welcome to Valor Prime." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand. The princess looked at it for a moment, then took it. Her skin was warm, which surprised him. He had expected it to feel strange, but it just felt like shaking hands with any person. "Thank you, Princess. We're honored to be here. Please, just Kalara. We don't stand on ceremony with friends, and we hope humans will be our friends." She turned to the others. "Come, there is a banquet prepared. You must be tired from your journey." As they walked through the station, Jake noticed something odd. The other Valorians they passed would stop and stare. Not at him exactly, but at all the humans. Some looked curious. Others looked almost hungry. It made his skin crawl. Sophie leaned close. "Sir, do you feel that?"
"Feel what?"
"I don't know. Like something pressing on my mind. Like someone trying to whisper, but I can't hear the words." Jake frowned. He didn't feel anything like that. "Stay alert. Tell me if it gets worse." The banquet hall was enormous. The ceiling seemed to show the actual sky above them, full of stars. Hundreds of beings filled the room. Most were Valorian, but Jake saw other species too. Some had scales, others had fur, and one group seemed to be made of living crystal. Kalara led them to a table near the front. "You will sit with me," she said. "My mother wishes to observe your reactions to your first galactic gathering." "Your mother is here?" Jake looked around. "She watches everything." Kalara gestured vaguely upward. "The Queen does not attend these gatherings in person often, but she is aware of all that happens." The food was strange but good. Kalara explained each dish, laughing when Jake made faces at some of the odder items. She was charming and seemed genuinely interested in Earth. She asked about oceans and forests and human cities. She wanted to know about art and music and what made humans laugh. Jake found himself relaxing. She was easy to talk to. He almost forgot they were surrounded by hundreds of aliens until he noticed the stares again. "Why does everyone keep looking at us?" he asked. Kalara's smile flickered. "You are new. The galaxy has not seen a species like yours in a long time. You are resistant." "Resistant to what?" She seemed to choose her words carefully. "To influence. Most species, when they meet us, become quite agreeable. Humans seem different. It is refreshing, actually." Before Jake could ask what she meant, a hush fell over the room. At the far end of the hall, a doorway opened. A woman entered, and Jake understood immediately who she was. Queen Thessara was taller than her daughter and moved with absolute certainty. Her hair was longer, reaching her waist, and seemed to shimmer with its own light. She wore a simple dress of deep blue, but somehow she looked more regal than if she had worn a crown of diamonds. Her eyes swept the room, and Jake felt the weight of her gaze when it passed over him. She did not come to their table. She walked to a raised platform and stood there, looking out over her guests. When she spoke, her voice filled the hall without seeming loud. Tonight we welcome a new voice to the Galactic community. The humans have traveled far to stand among us. We have watched them from afar, and we have been impressed by their determination and creativity. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship. The room erupted in polite applause. The Queen's eyes found Jake again, and this time they stayed on him for a long moment. He felt like she was reading him somehow, weighing and measuring. Then she smiled slightly and looked away. "Your queen seems very interested in you," Kailara said quietly. "Is that good or bad? With my mother it is never simple. Come, let me show you to your quarters. You must be exhausted." The rooms they had been given were luxurious. Each human had a private suite with windows overlooking the alien city below. Jake stood at his window for a long time, watching strange vehicles glide through the air and lights pulse in patterns he didn't understand. There was a knock at his door. Sophie entered without waiting for his answer, Henry right behind her. "We need to talk," Sophie said. She looked worried. "What's wrong?" Henry pulled out a small device. "I've been monitoring psychic energy levels. The Valorians emit a constant low-level telepathic field. It's subtle, but it's there. It seems designed to make other beings more agreeable, more willing to trust them." "And we're affected?" "I am," Sophie said. "Henry is partially. But you, sir, nothing. Whatever they're broadcasting, it doesn't touch you at all." Jake thought about how clear-headed he had felt all evening, while others seemed almost dazed. "Is it dangerous?" "Not inherently," Henry said. "It's more like a charisma effect multiplied by 1,000. But Captain, every other species in that room was affected. The fact that you're not makes you unique. Very unique." "The princess noticed," Sophie added. "She said humans were resistant." "I think she meant you specifically." Jake walked back to the window. In the glass, he could see his reflection in the alien city beyond. "Keep monitoring. If it gets stronger or changes, I need to know immediately." After they left, Jake tried to sleep but couldn't. His mind kept returning to the Queen's gaze. The way she had looked at him like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. He had come here to build a bridge between humans and aliens. He hadn't expected to feel like a specimen under examination. The next morning, Kailara appeared at his door with breakfast and a smile. "I thought you might like to see the city properly. There is so much to show you." Over the following days, she was his constant companion. She took him to gardens that grew plants from a dozen worlds. She showed him art galleries full of sculptures that moved and paintings that changed based on the viewer's mood. She introduced him to Valorian music, which seemed to resonate in his chest even though he couldn't hear all the frequencies. She was funny and warm. She complained about court politics and boring diplomatic meetings. She told him about growing up as the youngest of 3 sisters, always overlooked, always trying to prove herself. She made him laugh with stories about her attempts to learn human customs from Earth's television broadcasts. "I watched something called a romantic comedy," she said one day as they walked through a market. "I thought it was a documentary. I tried to apply what I learned to court interactions. It did not go well." Jake laughed harder than he had in months. "What did you do?" "I attempted to confess my feelings to someone by standing outside their window with a music device. It turns out that is not appropriate behavior for a princess. My mother was not amused. They spent hours talking about everything and nothing. Jake told her about Earth, about growing up in California near the ocean, about joining the military and then leaving it because he wanted to build things instead of fighting. She listened like every word mattered. He started to realize he was looking forward to seeing her each morning. He noticed small things, like the way she tilted her head when she was thinking or how her laugh sounded like bells. He found himself thinking about her when he should have been reviewing diplomatic briefings. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings with various alien dignitaries, Kailara took him to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold that Earth's sky never produced. "Do you like it here?" she asked. "It's beautiful. Overwhelming, but beautiful." 3 weeks passed like a dream. Jake spent nearly every day with Kailara, and every day it became harder to remember why he should be cautious. They explored hidden parts of the palace that tourists never saw. She showed him a library that held books from civilizations that had died thousands of years ago, They walked through gardens where the flowers sang when touched. She taught him some of the Valorian language. He was terrible at it and she laughed at his pronunciation, but she never made him feel stupid. She taught him a card game that involved reading your opponent's intentions, and she beat him every single time until he started to catch on. "You are learning," she said one afternoon, looking at the cards spread between them. "Most species never understand this game. They cannot hide their thoughts from us, but I can. You are like a locked door. I cannot read you at all. At first it was frustrating. Now I find it exciting. You could be thinking anything." She looked up at him. "What are you thinking right now?" Jake was thinking that she was beautiful, that her smile made him want to stay on this alien world forever, that he was falling for someone he had only known for 3 weeks, which was crazy. "I'm thinking I'm glad I came here," he said. She reached across the table and touched his hand. "So am I, but not everything was perfect." Jake noticed things that bothered him. Other aliens in the palace avoided him now. When he tried to speak to the ambassador from the crystalline species, she made an excuse and hurried away. The Valorian nobles watched him with expressions he couldn't read, something between curiosity and concern. Sophie and Henry were worried too. They met in Jake's quarters late one night, speaking quietly even though they were supposed to be safe. "I've been going through the historical records they gave us access to," Henry said. He looked tired. "There have been 3 prince consorts in the last 100 years. All of them married into the royal family. So?" Jake asked. "So all of them disappeared within a year. The official records say they returned home, but I checked with those civilizations. None of them ever arrived. They vanished." Sophie leaned forward. "And there's something else. I've been tracking Princess Lara's schedule from security logs. Every single chance encounter you've had with her was planned. The garden meeting on day 3? She was there 30 minutes early, waiting. The market visit? She cleared her entire afternoon, which she never does. Even that balcony with the sunset view. She had servants confirm the weather would be perfect." Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You think she's been playing me?" "I think someone has been directing her," Henry said carefully. "The Queen, maybe. Think about it, sir. You're immune to their psychic influence. That makes you valuable, or dangerous, or both. But why the princess? Why not just approach me directly?" Sophie and Henry exchanged glances. "That's what worries us," Sophie said. "We don't know the endgame here." Jake didn't sleep well that night. He kept thinking about every conversation with Lara, looking for signs of deception. But he remembered her laughter, the way she talked about her life, the stories she shared that seemed too personal to be lies. Either she was the best actor in the galaxy, or at least some of what they had was real. The next day, Lara took him to a concert. Valorian music was strange, using instruments that created sounds humans couldn't fully hear. But Jake enjoyed watching her enjoy it. She closed her eyes and swayed slightly, completely lost in the music. Afterward, they walked through the palace halls. It was late and most of the palace was quiet. "Jake," she said, suddenly stopping. "I need to tell you something." His heart sped up. "What is it?" "I have been thinking about what I said before. About you staying." She took his hands in hers. "I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a short time. But I feel something with you that I have never felt before. You do not see me as a princess or as a Valorian. You see me as just me. Do you understand?" He did understand. That was the problem. "Lara, I am falling in love with you," she said quickly, as if she needed to get the words out before she lost courage. "I want you to stay. Not as an ambassador, as my consort. My partner. I want to build something real with you." Jake looked at her face, at the hope and fear in her expression, and wanted desperately to believe her. But Henry's words echoed in his mind. 3 prince consorts, all disappeared. "I need time to think," he said. Something flickered in her eyes. Disappointment, or relief that she had delivered her message. "Of course. Take all the time you need." But as she left, Jake saw her glance down a corridor where shadows moved. He caught a glimpse of a tall figure in blue before it vanished. The Queen. Again. The next morning, Jake received an unexpected summons. Not from Lara, from Queen Thesara herself, a private audience, immediately. Sophie tried to object, but Jake overrode her. "I have to go. If this is what I think it is, we need to know." The Queen's private chambers were in the highest tower of the palace. Jake followed a silent servant through corridors that grew increasingly isolated. Finally, They reached a door that opened by itself. Beyond was a room that seemed simple at first, just comfortable furniture and soft lighting. But as Jake stepped inside, he realized the walls showed the view from the tower in every direction. It was like standing in the sky. Queen Thessara stood by one of the walls looking out over her city. She turned as he entered, and Jake felt the full force of her presence. Where Kaelara was warm and welcoming, the Queen was intense and commanding. "Captain Morrison, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice, Your Majesty?" She smiled slightly. "There is always a choice. That is something I have learned over my long life. Please sit." Jake sat. The Queen remained standing, which meant he had to look up at her. It was a power move, and they both knew it. "I have been watching you," she said, "these past weeks as you have spent time with my daughter. You interest me. Because I'm immune to your psychic influence?" Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Direct, yes, that is part of it. Your species is unusual. Most beings we encounter become quite agreeable in our presence. It makes diplomacy easy but somewhat boring. You, however, remain yourself. It is refreshing. Is that why you had your daughter seduce me? To see if it would work without psychic help?" The Queen's expression didn't change. "Kaelara is young. She believes in romance and grand gestures. I may have suggested she spend time with you, but her feelings are her own. Whether you believe that is up to you." Jake stood up. He was tired of these games. "What do you want from me, Your Majesty?" "I want you to stay. Not as my daughter's consort. As mine," the words hung in the air. Jake stared at her, not sure he had heard correctly. The Queen moved closer. "I am offering you a position of power that few in the galaxy ever achieve. You would be my personal advisor, my companion, my equal in all but title. You would help guide the Valorian Empire and shape the future of human-alien relations. You would have wealth, influence, and access to knowledge your species has only dreamed of." "Why me?" "Because you cannot be controlled. Because you will tell me the truth when others only tell me what I want to hear. Because in 3 centuries of rule I have never met anyone quite like you." She stood very close now. "Because I am bored of being surrounded by those who bend to my will." "You would never bend." Jake's mind raced. This was the end game. The Queen wanted him not for Earth, not for humanity's sake, but for her own purposes. Kaelara had been a test or a tool or a way to make him emotionally invested, so this offer would mean more. "And if I refuse?" "Then you refuse. I do not force these things." Her smile was sharp. "But I think you should consider carefully. Refusing the Queen's personal invitation has consequences. Perhaps not for you directly, but for your species' position in galactic politics. The Valorians have many friends. We also have the power to make things difficult for newcomers. It was a threat wrapped in silk. Say yes, or humanity's entry to the galactic stage becomes very hard." "I have feelings for your daughter," Jake said. "You have infatuation for my daughter. She is designed to inspire such feelings. But she is young and does not understand real power. What I offer you is something far greater than a romance." "I need time to think about this." The Queen studied him for a long moment. "You have 3 days. After that I will need an answer." She turned back to the window. "You are dismissed, Captain." Jake left the tower in a daze. His mind was spinning. He needed to talk to Sophie and Henry, needed to figure out what to do. But as he walked through the palace halls, he saw Kaelara in the distance. She was talking to another Valorian and she looked upset. When she saw him, she quickly looked away and hurried off in another direction. She was avoiding him. That told him everything he needed to know. Back in his quarters, Sophie and Henry listened as he explained what had happened. "We need to leave," Sophie said immediately. "This has gone too far. The Queen is essentially threatening Earth if you don't become her personal consort. That's not diplomacy, that's coercion." "Agreed," Henry said. "I'll start preparing the frontier for departure." But when Henry tried to arrange their departure, he ran into a problem. The Valorians informed him that the frontier needed routine maintenance. It would take at least 2 weeks, maybe more. "It's a delaying tactic," Sophie said angrily. "They're keeping us here until you give the Queen an answer she likes." Jake barely slept for 2 days. He spent his time with Sophie and Henry, trying to figure out a way out of this situation. They had 3 plans, each more desperate than the last. They could try to steal a ship, but Valorian security was everywhere. They could appeal to another alien species for help, but everyone seemed afraid to cross the Queen. They could contact Earth and ask for a military extraction, but that would start a war humanity could not win. Every option ended in disaster. "There has to be something we're missing," Jake said for the 100th time. They were in his quarters. documents and data pads scattered everywhere. Some leverage we have that we haven't thought of. Henry rubbed his tired eyes. I've been going through everything we know about Valorian society. The Queen's power is absolute because of two things. 1, her psychic ability is stronger than any other Valorian. 2, her authority has never been successfully challenged. She has ruled for 300 years without anyone seriously threatening her position. What about the other species in the Empire? Sophie asked. Surely some of them resent Valorian control. Of course they do, Henry said. He pulled up a file on his datapad. I found some interesting information buried in the historical archives. About 50 years ago, there was a minor uprising on one of the colony worlds. The species there, the Kresh, tried to assert independence. The Queen crushed it, but the reports say it took longer than expected. The Kresh are naturally resistant to psychic influence like us, though not as completely immune. Jake leaned forward. What happened to them? They're still part of the Empire, but they're kept isolated. Limited contact with other species. The official reason is cultural preservation, but I think it's because the Queen doesn't want other species learning that resistance is possible. Sophie stood up suddenly. That's it. That's our leverage. What do you mean? The Queen's power is based on the perception that she's invincible, that Valorian control is inevitable. But what if we show the galaxy that's not true? What if we prove that humans can not only resist them, but thrive without them? Jake thought about it. You mean refuse her offer publicly? That would humiliate her. More than that, Sophie said, her voice getting excited. We announce that Earth is opening diplomatic relations with the Kresh. We show the galaxy that humanity chooses to stand with species who value independence over those who demand submission. Henry was nodding. It's risky. Very risky. The Queen could see it as an act of war. Or, Jake said slowly, she could see it as exactly what she claimed to want from me. Someone who won't bend. Someone who challenges her. He stood up and started pacing. She said she was bored of people who always agree with her. Maybe she meant it. Maybe the worst thing I could do is give in. They spent the rest of the night crafting their plan. It had to be done carefully. One wrong move and they would start an interstellar incident. But Jake was tired of being manipulated. It was time to remind the galaxy that humans did not respond well to threats. The next morning, Jake sent a formal message through official Earth channels. He announced that humanity was extending its first major trade and alliance proposal, not to the Valorian Empire, but to the Kresh Collective. He cited their shared values of independence and self-determination. He praised the Kresh for maintaining their identity within the Empire, and suggested that Earth and the Kresh had much to learn from each other. The response was immediate and chaotic. Within an hour, Jake was summoned to the throne room. Not the Queen's private chambers this time, but the public hall where she held court. It was the first time he had been there, and the space was designed to intimidate. The ceiling soared hundreds of feet above, and the throne itself sat at the top of a long staircase. Every Valorian noble in the palace was there, along with representatives from dozens of alien species. Jake walked down the center aisle alone. Sophie and Henry had wanted to come, but he refused. This confrontation was his to face. Queen Thesara sat on her throne and she was angry. Jake could see it in the set of her shoulders, the sharp line of her mouth. But her voice was calm when she spoke, amplified somehow to fill the enormous room. Captain Morrison, you have made a very bold move. I have made a diplomatic overture to a species we believe shares our values. Your Majesty, you have insulted this empire and insulted me personally after I showed you great honor. Jake climbed the stairs slowly, keeping his eyes on her. Every instinct told him to be cautious, to back down. But he had learned something important in his weeks on Valor Prime. The Queen responded to strength, not submission. With respect, Your Majesty, I do not believe I have insulted you. I have done exactly what you claim to value. I have refused to be controlled. He reached the top of the stairs and stood before her throne. The nobles around them were silent, watching. This was unprecedented. No one spoke to the Queen this way. You dare to lecture me in my own throne room? I dare to be honest with you, which is what you said you wanted. Jake kept his voice steady. You offered me a position as your advisor because I cannot be psychically influenced. You said you wanted someone who would tell you the truth. But at the same time, you threatened my entire species if I refused. That is not seeking honest counsel. That is seeking control in a different form. The Queen stood. She was taller than him and her presence was overwhelming. Jake forced himself not to step back. "You know nothing of ruling an empire," she said coldly. "You know nothing of the responsibilities I carry." "You're right. I don't, but I know about respect. I know that true loyalty cannot be forced or threatened into existence. You said humans interest you because we remain ourselves in your presence. But you have spent the last 3 weeks trying to manipulate me through your daughter and then through fear. So you choose the Kresh over us? A minor species with delusions of significance over the most powerful empire in this sector? I choose humanity's right to make our own decisions. If the Valorian Empire wants humanity as an ally, it will have to earn our trust, not demand our submission." The throne room was absolutely silent. Jake could feel hundreds of eyes on him. He had just told one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy that she could not have what she wanted. He was either very brave or very stupid, and he was not sure which. The Queen stared at him for a long moment. Then unexpectedly she smiled. It was not a warm smile, but it was genuine. "You are either incredibly foolish or incredibly clever," she said. "I have not decided which. Perhaps I'm just a human who refuses to be played like a piece in a game. Everything is a game, Captain. Politics, diplomacy, power itself. The question is whether you play to win or play not to lose." She descended from her throne and walked around him slowly. "You think you have shocked me. You think you have gained some advantage by reaching out to the Kresh, but you have made a mistake." Jake's heart sank. He had miscalculated after all. "You have shown me something I have not seen in a very long time. You have shown me defiance backed by genuine conviction, not the desperate flailing of a cornered creature, but the calm refusal of someone who believes they are right." She stopped in front of him. "I told you I wanted an advisor who would tell me the truth. You have done exactly that at great personal risk, so I will tell you a truth in return." She gestured, and an aide brought forward a data pad. "The Kresh Collective sent a response to your proposal. They are interested. Very interested. In fact, their ambassador is already en route to Valor Prime. He will arrive in 3 days." Jake tried to hide his surprise. That was faster than he expected. "This creates a problem for me," the Queen continued. "Many of my nobles believe I should punish you for this insult. They think I should make an example of you to discourage other species from similar acts of defiance. And what do you think, Your Majesty? I think you have reminded me why I made my offer in the first place. You are not like the others. You cannot be intimidated or charmed into compliance. You will do what you believe is right, regardless of the consequences." She turned to address the assembled court. "Captain Morrison will remain my guest. He will continue to serve as Earth's ambassador to the Valorian Empire." The nobles erupted in protest, but the Queen raised her hand for silence. "However," she said, her eyes returning to Jake, "my original offer stands with one change. You will not be my consort. You will be my advisor on human affairs with full diplomatic immunity and the right to return to Earth every 6 months. You will live in the palace. You will attend me in all matters relating to your species and to species who seek independence from Valorian influence. You will give me honest counsel, and I will not punish you for it." Jake tried to process this. It was not what he expected. "Why?" "Because you are right. True loyalty cannot be forced, and I find that I am curious to see what a human who refuses to bend might accomplish." She leaned closer and lowered her voice so only he could hear. "You think you have won something here today. Perhaps you have. But understand this, Captain. I am allowing this because it serves my interests. The galaxy needs to be reminded that the Valorian Empire can embrace strength in others, not just demand submission. You will be that reminder. And your daughter?" A flicker of something crossed her face. "Kailara will find her own path. She has been too sheltered, too protected. Perhaps you have taught her." The first week in his new role was the hardest. Jake moved into quarters in the palace's diplomatic wing, rooms that were larger and more luxurious than what he had before. But luxury did not make the situation easier. Every Valorian noble who passed him in the halls stared with barely concealed hostility. He had humiliated their queen publicly, and though she had rewarded him for it, they did not understand why. Sophie and Henry prepared the frontier for departure. The maintenance was suddenly completed overnight, just as the Queen had promised. But before they left, Sophie pulled Jake aside in his new quarters. "Are you sure about this, sir? You're staying alone on an alien world, surrounded by people who hate you, serving a queen who threatened to destroy Earth's future if you didn't comply." "I know how it looks," Jake said. "But think about what we've accomplished. The frontier is free to go. Earth can make alliances with whoever we want, and I'm in a position to influence one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. That's worth the risk. Or you're rationalizing being trapped. Jake could not argue with that. Maybe he was. "How's Kalara?" he asked, changing the subject. Sophie's expression softened slightly. "I saw her yesterday. She asked about you." "I think she genuinely cares, Jake, whatever her mother's plans were. It doesn't matter now, doesn't it? You're living in the same palace. You'll see her. It's better if we keep our distance." Jake looked out the window at the alien sky. She deserves better than to be caught in the middle of whatever game her mother is playing. After Sophie and Henry left, the palace felt emptier. Jake threw himself into his work. The Queen had assigned him an office near her own chambers, and every day brought new challenges. She would summon him to discuss human psychology, human history, human culture. She wanted to understand everything about his species. "Why do humans resist authority so naturally?" she asked one day. They were in her private study, a room filled with artifacts from dozens of worlds. "Other species have hierarchies, yes, but humans seem to question authority, even when it is clearly in their best interest to obey." Jake considered the question. He was learning that the Queen valued honesty over flattery, but he had to be careful how he phrased things. Maybe because we've seen what happens when people stop questioning authority. Our history is full of tyrants who claim to know what was best. We've learned to be suspicious of anyone who demands absolute obedience. Yet you have governments, militaries, systems of control. We do, but they're supposed to serve the people, not the other way around. When they forget that, humans tend to remind them, sometimes violently. The Queen smiled slightly. "You are saying your species is naturally rebellious. I'm saying we value freedom over security. Most of the time." He paused. "Is that why you wanted me here? To learn how to control a species that can't be psychically influenced?" "Partially, but also because I find your perspective refreshing. Do you know how long it has been since someone told me I was wrong about something?" "I'm guessing a while. Centuries, Captain. Literal centuries. Everyone around me either agrees immediately or learns to agree very quickly. Even my own daughters have learned to anticipate what I want and provide it. But you?" She leaned back in her chair. "You argue with me. You question my assumptions. You make me think." I had forgotten how valuable that is. Jake was not sure if he should feel honored or concerned. What happened to the other consorts? "The ones who married into your family?" The Queen's expression did not change, but something in her eyes grew cold. "You have been reading the sealed archives. Henry found references before he left. It's not exactly a secret, just not advertised. They were weak. They bent too easily to Valorian influence. Once they were fully integrated into our society, they became useless. Boring, so I sent them away. The records say they disappeared. They went home to their own people, Captain. What their governments chose to report is not my concern." She stood and walked to the window. "You think I am cruel? Perhaps I am. But I have ruled this empire for 300 years, and I have kept peace among dozens of species who would otherwise destroy each other. Sometimes that requires difficult choices." Jake watched her silhouette against the alien sky. She was not lying exactly, but she was not telling the whole truth either. He made a mental note to investigate the consort's fates more thoroughly when he had access to better records. Over the following weeks, Jake settled into a strange routine. His mornings were spent in meetings with alien ambassadors, many of whom wanted to understand the human who had defied the Queen and lived. His afternoons were spent advising the Queen on various matters, from trade disputes to cultural exchanges. His evenings were his own, though he often spent them studying Valorian history and politics. He saw Kylara occasionally in the palace halls. They would nod to each other politely but never stopped to talk. Jake told himself it was better this way, but he noticed she looked sadder each time he saw her. He wondered if she blamed him for how things had turned out. 3 weeks after Sophie and Henry left, the Kresh ambassador arrived. His name was Vorak, and he was massive, easily 7 feet tall with dark blue skin covered in natural armor plates. His eyes were bright yellow, and when he smiled, he showed rows of sharp teeth. But his handshake was firm and friendly. "Captain Morrison," he rumbled, "I have heard much about you. The human who told the Valorian Queen no. This is a good story." They met in Jake's office, away from Valorian ears. Vorak looked around the room approvingly. "They treat you well here, yes?" "Well enough." "How was your journey?" "Long. but worth it to meet the human who has all of Valor Prime talking. Vorak settled into a chair that creaked under his weight. My people are very interested in your proposal. An alliance with Earth, species who share our resistance to Valorian control. I should be clear, Jake said carefully. I'm not anti-Valorian. I'm pro-independence. There's a difference. Of course. The Queen would not keep you as her advisor if you sought to destroy her empire. But you understand what we face. The constant pressure to submit, to accept their way as the only way. It is exhausting. They talked for hours. Vorak explained that the Kresh had been part of the Valorian Empire for 200 years. They were not mistreated exactly, but they were isolated, kept away from other species. The Valorians claimed it was to preserve Kresh culture, but Vorak believed it was to prevent other species from learning that resistance was possible. If other species knew that the Valorian psychic influence could be resisted, it would change everything, Vorak said. The Empire is built on the assumption that Valorian authority is inevitable. But it is not. We prove it is not, and now so do you. Jake saw the opportunity. What if we formalize that? What if Earth and the Kresh formed an open alliance based on mutual independence? We could invite other species who value self-determination. The Queen would never allow it. The Queen already agreed that Earth can make alliances with anyone we choose. She can't back out now without losing face. Vorak's eyes gleamed. You are clever, human. Very clever. I will discuss this with my government. After Vorak left, Jake sat in his office thinking. He had just planted the seeds of something that could change galactic politics, an alliance of independent species, united not by submission to a powerful empire but by shared values. It was ambitious. Maybe too ambitious. There was a knock at his door. Jake looked up to see Kaylara standing there. She looked nervous. May I come in? Jake hesitated, then nodded. She entered and closed the door behind her. I have been avoiding you, she said. I am sorry for that. You don't need to apologize. This situation is complicated. It is my fault. If I had been stronger, if I had questioned my mother's orders from the beginning. She sat down, not looking at him. I have been thinking about what you said in the throne room, about loyalty being earned, not forced. You were right, Kaylara. Please let me finish. I have spent my whole life trying to be what my mother wanted. The perfect princess, obedient and charming and useful. But I never questioned whether that was what I wanted. You made me question everything. Jake looked at her face, at the pain there, and felt his resolve weaken. I didn't mean to hurt you. You did not hurt me. You freed me. For the first time I am thinking about what I want, not what is expected of me. She finally met his eyes. I wanted to tell you that I am leaving Valor Prime. My mother has agreed to let me travel to some of the outer colonies. I want to see the Empire beyond the palace, to meet our subject species and understand them. That's good. That's a healthy thing to do, is it? Or am I running away from my feelings for you? The question hung between them. Jake wanted to say the right thing, but he did not know what that was. Maybe both, he said finally. But that doesn't make it wrong. You need to figure out who you are, separate from your mother's influence and separate from whatever this was between us. Kaylara nodded slowly. Will you still be here when I return? I don't know. This arrangement with your mother is temporary. Eventually, Earth will send a permanent ambassador and I'll go home. But not yet. Not yet. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Jake, thank you. For being honest. For not pretending to be something you are not. My mother chose well when she chose you. After she left, Jake sat alone in the darkness of his office. He thought. 2 months after the Kresh ambassador's visit, Jake received word that the alliance proposal had been approved by both Earth and the Kresh Collective. It was historic, humanity's first major interstellar alliance. But the celebration was short-lived because 3 other species immediately requested to join. The Solan were a species of insectoid beings who had been part of the Valorian Empire for generations. The Mirath were aquatic creatures who lived on ocean worlds. The Teldan were small, furry beings known for their engineering skills. All 3 had one thing in common. They were tired of being under Valorian authority. Jake sat in his office looking at the requests and felt both excited and terrified. This was bigger than he had imagined. This was not just an alliance. This was the beginning of a movement. He took the requests to the Queen. She was in her throne room reviewing petitions from various worlds. When Jake entered, she dismissed everyone else. They were alone in the vast hall. 3 more species want to join the Human Kresh Alliance, he said without preamble. the Solon, Mirith, and Tilden. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. I see. And what do you recommend, advisor? I recommend we allow it. These species are asking for more autonomy, not independence. They still want to be part of the Empire, just with more freedom to make their own decisions. And if I refuse, then you prove what they already suspect, that the Valorian Empire is built on control, not cooperation. You lose their loyalty, maybe permanently. The Queen stood and descended from her throne. She walked past him toward the large windows that overlooked her city. Do you know what happens to empires that lose control, Captain? They adapt or they die. They die, she corrected. They fracture into dozens of small warring states. Peace ends, chaos begins. I have seen it happen. I have prevented it from happening here for 3 centuries. Jake walked to stand beside her. But what if there's another way? What if you could maintain peace without needing absolute control? What if these species stayed loyal because they wanted to, not because they were influenced to? That is a naive view of power, is it? Or is it what you've been trying to teach me to question? He turned to face her. You said you wanted honest counsel. Here it is. The Empire is changing whether you want it to or not. Humans and Kresh can't be psychically controlled. If you try to hold on to the old ways, you'll just create resentment and resistance. But if you adapt, if you show that the Empire can be flexible, you might create something stronger. The Queen looked at him with those silver eyes that seemed to see everything. You are asking me to give up power. I'm asking you to redefine power. A queen who rules over willing subjects is stronger than one who rules through force. Pretty words. But words do not hold empires together. No, but respect does. Trust does. You told me yourself that you were bored with subjects who always agreed. These species are giving you what you said you wanted. They're questioning your authority. The question is whether you meant what you said about valuing that. The Queen was silent for a long time. Jake waited, not pushing. He had learned that she needed time to think, to weigh all the angles of every decision. Finally, she spoke. I will allow the Alliance to expand with conditions. First, all member species must remain within the Empire's protective umbrella. They can have internal autonomy, but external defense and foreign policy remain my domain. Second, this alliance will have representation at my court. You will lead it. Third, any species that joins must contribute to the Empire's common defense. Freedom comes with responsibility. Jake felt relief flood through him. Those terms are reasonable. I'll present them to the Alliance members. And, Captain, do not mistake this for weakness. I am allowing this because it serves my interests. If your alliance becomes a threat to Imperial stability, I will end it. Do you understand? I understand, Your Majesty. But as Jake left the throne room, he realized something important. The Queen had just admitted that she could not stop this through force alone. She was adapting just as he had suggested. It was a small victory, but it was a victory. The next few weeks were a blur of negotiations. Jake worked with representatives from all the Alliance species, drafting agreements and organizing meetings. The Alliance needed a name, a structure, a purpose beyond just species who resist Valorian control. They settled on calling it the Independent Species Coalition. The name was Vorak's idea, and it perfectly captured what they were trying to build. Not an anti-Valorian group, but a coalition of species who valued their independence while still cooperating with the larger empire. The first official meeting of the coalition was held in a neutral location, a space station on the edge of Valorian territory. Representatives from Earth, the Kresh, the Solon, the Mirath, and the Telden attended. Jake chaired the meeting, feeling the weight of responsibility. We are here to build something new, he began. A partnership based on mutual respect, not submission. We recognize that we are part of a larger galactic community, but we also believe that each species has the right to chart its own course. The meeting went well. Better than Jake had hoped. The species had different cultures and different needs, but they all shared a fundamental belief in self-determination. By the end of the day, they had drafted a charter for the coalition, but not everyone was happy about it. Back on Valor Prime, many Valorian nobles were furious. They saw the coalition as a direct challenge to Valorian authority. Rumors spread that Jake had manipulated the Queen, that he was using his unique position to undermine the Empire from within. One evening, as Jake walked through the palace gardens, he was confronted by a group of nobles. They were led by Lord Cathan, an older Valorian with cold eyes. Captain Morrison, Cathan said. His voice dripped with contempt. You have been very busy. Jake stopped walking. The nobles formed a loose circle around him. There were 6 of them. He was alone, Lord Cathan. Is there something I can help you with? You can leave. Return to your primitive world and stop poisoning the Queen's mind with your human ideas about freedom and independence. The Queen seems quite capable of making her own decisions. The Queen is distracted by her fascination with you. She does not see that you are destroying everything she has built. Jake kept his voice calm, though his heart was racing. I'm following the Queen's orders. If you have a problem with my presence, take it up with her. Cathan stepped closer. Perhaps we will. Or perhaps we will solve this problem ourselves. It was a threat, clear and direct. Jake knew he should back down, walk away, report this to the Queen. But he was tired of being threatened. If you're going to do something, Lord Cathan, do it. But understand that if anything happens to me, Earth will not take it lightly, and neither will the Independent Species Coalition. You'll have a diplomatic crisis that makes my presence look like a minor inconvenience. The nobles tensed. For a moment, Jake thought they might actually attack him. Then a voice cut through the tension. Lord Cathan, is there a problem? Everyone turned. Queen Thessera stood at the garden entrance. She was alone, but her presence filled the space. The nobles immediately bowed. Your Majesty, we were simply discussing recent events with the captain. It looked like you were threatening him. The Queen's voice was cold. I believe I made it clear that Captain Morrison is under my personal protection. Did my words lack clarity? No, Your Majesty, but then you understand that threatening him is the same as threatening me. I trust this conversation is over. The nobles left quickly, casting hostile glances at Jake as they went. When they were gone, the Queen approached. You handled that well, she said. I thought I was about to die. They would not have killed you. Attacked you, perhaps, to send a message, but not killed. That would be too direct a challenge to my authority. She looked at him curiously. You were not afraid. I was terrified. I just didn't show it. She smiled slightly. Another human quality. You feel fear but act anyway. Most species either know no fear or are paralyzed by it. Humans seem to exist in the middle. They walked through the garden together in silence. It was strange, Jake thought, how comfortable he had become in her presence. She was still intimidating, still dangerous, but he had learned how to read her moods, how to anticipate her reactions. The nobles are not wrong to be concerned, she said finally. Your coalition is changing the Empire. Perhaps not in the ways they fear, but changed nonetheless. Do you regret allowing it? No, but I am uncertain where it will lead. That is not a feeling I enjoy. Welcome to the human experience, Jake said. We're uncertain about everything, and we still manage to function. Barely, from what I've observed of your history. Fair point. They reached a fountain at the center of the garden. The water flowed in patterns that defied gravity, creating spirals and arcs in the air. Jake had learned it was Valorian technology, manipulation of gravitational fields at a small scale. My daughter left this morning, the Queen said suddenly. She did not say goodbye. Jake felt a pang of sadness. I'm sorry, do not be. She is doing what she needs to do. You taught her that, whether you meant to or not. The Queen looked at him. She loved you, genuinely. Whatever my intentions when I sent her to you, her feelings became real. I know. I cared about her too. But you chose duty over love. Very noble. Very human. There was 4 months after the formation of the Independent Species Coalition, Jake stood on the observation deck of the new coalition headquarters. The station was impressive, a gift from the Queen that was both generous and strategic. From here he could see ships from a dozen species coming and going, conducting the business of an organization that was changing how the galaxy worked. His communicator buzzed. It was Sophie calling from Earth. Captain, I have news. Earth Command is sending a replacement ambassador. She'll arrive in 2 weeks. Jake had known this was coming. He had been away from Earth for almost a year, and the coalition needed permanent leadership, not a temporary advisor. But hearing it made it real. Who is it? Ambassador Lisa Chen. She's experienced, tough, and she actually volunteered for the position. Apparently, your reports have made this assignment highly desirable. Tell her to bring patience. She'll need it. After the call ended, Jake sat alone in his office looking at the stars. He should be happy. He had accomplished what he set out to do. He had established humanity's place in the galaxy, created an alliance that protected species' rights, and even earned the respect of a queen who did not give respect easily. He could go home, but the thought of leaving felt wrong. There was still so much work to do. His door chimed. "Come in," he called. Queen Thesara entered. She rarely came to the station, preferring to let Jake run things without direct interference. Her presence meant something important, Your Majesty. "I wasn't expecting you. I heard about your replacement." She moved to the window, looking out at the ships. "When do you leave?" "I haven't decided yet." She turned to look at him. "You have a choice?" "I always have a choice. That's what I've been trying to show everyone." "And what does your choice tell you?" Jake stood and joined her at the window. "It tells me I'm not finished here. The coalition is stable, but it's not strong yet. There are still species who want to join. Still Valorian nobles who want it to fail. Still 100 problems that need solving. Ambassador Chen is capable, but she doesn't know the players, doesn't have the relationships I've built. So you will stay. If you'll have me. Not as Earth's ambassador, but as the coalition's coordinator. A position that serves the coalition, not any single species." The Queen smiled slightly. "You would give up your official position to continue this work?" "The title doesn't matter. The work does. You are unusual, Captain Morrison. Most beings seek power and position. You seem content to simply do what you believe is right, regardless of the recognition. I learned that from someone who has ruled for 3 centuries. Power without purpose is just noise. I did not teach you that. You didn't have to. You showed it." Jake turned to face her. "You could have crushed the coalition when it started. You had the power. But you chose to adapt instead. That took more strength than any show of force would have." The Queen was quiet for a moment. "My nobles still believe I made a mistake. They think I have grown weak, allowing these species to assert independence. What do you think?" "I think the Empire is stronger now than it was a year ago. The species that joined the coalition are more loyal, not less because they chose their loyalty, and the other species see that the Empire can change, can accommodate different approaches to governance. It makes them less likely to rebel. So I've been useful, irritatingly so." But she was smiling. "The truth is, Captain, you have done something I did not think possible. You have made me reconsider assumptions I have held for centuries, about power, about control, about what it means to rule. That is no small achievement." Before Jake could respond, the station's alarms blared. Red lights flashed throughout the corridor. Jake's communicator erupted with urgent messages. "What's happening?" the Queen demanded. Jake pulled up the station's sensors on a wall display. His blood ran cold. "Ships, dozens of them. They just came out of hyperspace at the system's edge." "What species?" "Unknown. But Captain, they're armed. Heavily armed." The Queen's expression turned hard. "Show me." Jake enhanced the image. The ships were sleek and aggressive-looking, unlike anything in the Valorian database. As they watched, the ships formed a battle formation and began advancing toward the station. "Get me a communication channel," the Queen ordered. Within seconds, a face appeared on the screen. It was humanoid but not quite human, with pale green skin and large black eyes. Its expression was cold. "I am Commander Zeril of the Corvin Imperium. You have entered territory we claim. Surrender the station immediately or we will take it by force." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Corvins. He had read about them in the Valorian archives. They were an aggressive species that had been expanding their territory for decades, conquering smaller civilizations. The Valorians had managed to keep them at bay through military strength. But the coalition station was in a neutral zone, technically outside Valorian protection. "This station is under the protection of the Independent Species Coalition and the Valorian Empire," the Queen said calmly. "I suggest you withdraw." "The Valorian Empire?" Commander Zeril laughed. "We have observed your empire, Queen. It is fracturing. Species asserting independence, forming their own alliances. You are weak, and this station proves it. You hide behind coalitions because you can no longer control your subjects directly." Jake saw the Queen's jaw tighten. This was exactly what the nobles had feared. The coalition made the Empire look weak to external threats. "You have 1 hour to evacuate," Zeril continued. "After that, we open fire." The screen went dark. "We need to evacuate," Jake said immediately. "Get everyone off the station and retreat to Valorian space." "No." Jake looked at the Queen in disbelief. "Your Majesty, we can't fight them. The station has minimal defenses and there are civilians here. If we retreat, the coalition dies. Every species in the galaxy will see that I cannot protect what I claim to protect. The Empire will look weak, and the Corvins will push further into our territory." She turned to him. This is the moment where we prove whether your coalition means something or whether it was just words. Jake understood what she was saying, but he did not like it. What do you propose? We send a message. To every species in the coalition, to every ally the Valorians have, to every civilization watching, we tell them what is happening here and ask them to stand with us, eh? That could take days. We have an hour. Then we stall. We negotiate. We play for time. The Queen's eyes gleamed. And you, Captain, will do what you do best. You will show them that humans do not bend, even in the face of overwhelming force. Jake wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. This was bigger than the station. This was about whether the coalition could survive its first real test. All right, let me talk to them. He opened a channel to the Corvin ships. Commander Zero's face appeared again. Commander, I'm Captain Jake Morrison, coordinator of the Independent Species Coalition. I'd like to negotiate. There is nothing to negotiate. Evacuate or die. I think there is. You said the Empire is fracturing, that we're weak. But you're wrong. The Coalition represents something the Corvins can't understand. We're not here because we're forced to be. We're here because we choose to be. That's a kind of strength you can't measure with weapons. Pretty speech. It will not stop our missiles. Maybe not. But think about what you're doing. If you attack this station, you're not just attacking the Valorians. You're attacking Earth, the Kresh, the Solon, the Mirath, the Teldan, and every other species that believes in the Coalition. You're making enemies of half the galaxy. Empty threats. None of those species have significant military power, don't they? The Kresh military is small but highly trained. The Teldan build the best weapons in this sector. Earth has a fleet that might be primitive by your standards, but we have 6 billion humans who really don't like being pushed around. And all of us together, we're a force you don't want to face. Zero looked uncertain for the first time. You are bluffing. Am I? There's one way to find out. Attack us, see what happens. Or you could withdraw and save yourself a war you can't win. The screen went dark again. Jake let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Well played, the Queen said, but they will not withdraw based on words alone. I know. We need to back it up. Jake sent urgent messages to every coalition member, to Earth Command, to Valorian military bases. He explained the situation and asked for help. Then he waited. 30 minutes passed. Then 45. Jake watched the Corvin ships on sensors, seeing them inch closer. They were going to attack. Then the sensors lit up with new contacts. Ships emerging from hyperspace. First one, then 5, then a dozen. Kresh warships massive and bristling with weapons. Teldan cruisers, small but fast. Earth destroyers, humanity's finest military vessels. Solon defense platforms deployed by fast-moving transports. And behind them all, a Valorian battle fleet arriving at the Queen's command. The station's communication system came alive with messages of support. The coalition members had responded. All of them. Jake opened a channel to the Corvins. Commander Zeril, you wanted to see if my threats were empty. What do you think now? The Corvin commander's face appeared. He looked furious, but also worried. The coalition fleet outnumbered his forces 3-1. This is not over, Zeril said. You're right. It's not, but today it ends with you withdrawing. Go back to your Imperium and tell them that the Independent Species Coalition is not